streamed. It just says it right now.
Did it?
It
Yeah, it
it
did.
says
I saw it.
Oh,
this meeting's
good.
being live streamed.
Oh, there
Yep.
we are. Okay, that's excellent. Hopefully, people
You can
missed all
tell we do
the.
this for a living.
That's right. Hopefully, people missed all the nasty commentary that you guys were making. You're
We were
very
just
rude
talking about
sometimes.
scenic pictures of mountains. I don't know what you're referring to.
That's
He's a
right.
little paranoid.
All right.
More so
So
today than usual.
How long have you been feeling this way, Katie?
I know. So I would like to thank my hairdresser for the good hair day that I'm having today. She's awesome.
It does look good. It does.
Thank
It
you.
looks very nice.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. All right, we have things to do today, guys.
Let's get to it then.
Let's get
Yes.
to it. All right. So we are going to start with some of the questions that, by the way, I sent you ahead of time. I don't know if you guys spent any time.
I
Excuse me,
did.
I responded to you.
I did
Yes, you
not,
did.
but
I
I
know
did read
Zach
them.
didn't.
But
Oh,
I did read
good.
them
That's
today.
a big deal. Okay.
I
So
gotta prepare.
I think that we should talk first about Lewis's question, because I really love this question. I think it's one that we've all heard in practice before. And so what would you like me to read the question, or do you want me to just give you the synopsis?
You can read it or flash it on the screen.
Yeah.
Do
I
I
know.
really do
I
I
just-
know how to flash it on the screen?
No, you don't.
I don't
Okay.
know how to flash it on the screen.
I just thought I'd
Okay.
challenge you.
All right. So, thanks, John. That's great. So, okay. So I worry about coming into contact with illegal substances, drugs and then could be affected by this or could pass them along to my young children, right?
Wait, time
And
out. Did he say
yeah,
what drugs? Which ones?
no,
Illegal.
he didn't mention which drugs, but like,
Okay.
I mean, if you guys have heard, like we hear all these horrible stories in the news and the media about like people inadvertently taking a fentanyl pill, right? And injuring themselves or dying,
By the way, I don't
And
hear those stories.
I was just gonna say, I
I
actually
hear
never hear
people
those.
getting in trouble from fentanyl, but usually it's because they did it on purpose. So go and read the question again for Zach who
Yeah.
didn't get it.
okay. Well, I happened to hear a story this morning about a lawsuit that was happening about that. So, all right. So, worry about coming in contact with illegal substances, drugs, that then I could be affected or pass them on to my young children, causing me not to touch anything at all, as if I think that, and most items, right? So,
Keep reading, just reading.
cashiers, well,
Yeah.
okay,
He has a point.
cashier stations at the gas pumps, groceries, etc. The list could go on. But so these things could have been touched while somebody else had these substances on them. So like, that sort of transferring, right? And
Fentanyl
then,
to fentanyl
or
to yeah, okay.
that somebody could have touched them while they had the substances in their body, like sweat, saliva, blood, or on themselves at the time before this person goes and touches them, right? And so sort of that transfer. I know the odds are slim, virtually zero, that I would get affected
John, I promise you'll get to go first.
and get
You
high.
can put your
Hold
hand
on,
down.
put your hand down. But the worry is like maybe he's going to get high by touching these things, or okay, hold on. It goes on. Let me just finish this part.
Keep stretching.
He knows that it's a slim chance that he would get high, but drugs like cocaine, cannabis, etc., it makes me feel icky. And it's like this idea that I don't want to be around them. I don't want my kids to be around them, etc. And so trying to avoid the risk. Okay, now John, who's very politely had his hand raised, go.
So, I mean, I think the first thing that would be useful to let Lewis know is that this particular presentation is really very typical, and it's basically a variation of I'm afraid of contaminating other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a issue of like, where do I pick up the thing that I'm afraid of contaminating other people with? And Lewis correctly notes that this is an incredibly low probability event. That it's unlikely, because currently, somebody getting high from sweat off a body of somebody who's taken drugs, we don't have really any recorded cases of that. But I'm not saying it can't happen.
Right.
But
maybe somebody's on a massive dose.
Even that probably wouldn't work. But the
Probably
point
not.
is, it's not something he's read about happening with any frequency. And he has two choices. And I apologize if I sound like a broken record, because I am. But he only has two choices. One is to act normal and risk that happening, or two is suffer forever. And the only thing wrong with his choice of suffering forever is he's worried about drugs. Well, I can think of a zillion other things that have the same level of probability of transmission through touch that he can equally worry about. Like, you're not going to get AIDS that way, but hey, he could be the rare case of gets a,
Right.
dose of AIDS on his hand. He could get MRSA on his hands. You could get MRSA and spread it.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is his choice is to risk that happening. And there are two issues. If he gets some of the substance in his body or the body of his son, there is the real question of how many milligrams is he getting in? Is he getting in an active dose that will affect them? There are a lot of drug addicts who would wish this would be a way to get high. No, seriously, I'm getting my shot of heroin. Where do I go to rub my,
which
hands?
grocery store do I have to go to and rub my hands on groceries?
Yeah.
Excuse me, have you done heroin today?
Yeah. But seriously, right? So yes, he's going to have to take the risk. And of course, like all OCD, the more I avoid it, the more things I'll have to avoid. And he can guarantee you one thing that is highly likely to happen if he keeps up this behavior. I'm sorry, two things. One, his OC is going to get way worse. And he already knows that. He's watched it get worse.
Right.
And I would have to ask Lewis, do you love your son? I'm thinking Lewis would say yes. I would then ask Lewis, do you love him enough that you would do anything for him? And I think if Lewis says yes, I would kind of have to say, I'm sorry, man, you're a liar. Because right now, what you're doing, you're going to mess your son up. Your son has a 1 in 4 chance of having OCD because you have it. So if he is going to have OCD, you are teaching him this is hopeless, as opposed to something you can overcome. And if he's not going to have OCD biologically, then you're going to have a kid that when he's 13, he's not going to listen to anything you say because you're crazy. He is not going to respect you. So do you love him enough to take that risk of making that more important? So you get to choose fear or love. You claim you're doing it for him, but no offense, that's garbage. Because you're actually hurting him. And I think Lewis could tell me, but I would feel really guilty if anything happened to my son because of me. And
how would I live with myself, right? How would I live with myself?
You raise a really
he doesn't have all his
important,
bases covered, though.
you really raise a question about parenthood that's really important. What I'm about to say is not facetious. I am dead serious. Being a parent means you are always guilty, because every decision you make falls into one of two categories. One, you're overprotective, and that's why they can't handle anything and they're a mess. Two, you weren't protective enough, and that's why they broke their leg. There is no in between. You try to navigate it in a way that's rational, seemingly, and you hope in the end it works out and that they've learned enough. But there's no in between because, it's like, oh, my 14-year wants to go to this concert. Do I let them go? I'm afraid to. Maybe they'll die there. And if they die at home because they fell down the stairs, if only you'd let them go to the concert. And they let them go to the concert and they fall down the stairs. And, it's like they
That's
can
right.
fall down, and because the other terrible thing about parenthood, besides you're always guilty, is, and I think you guys know the answer. Do you know what saves our children?
Luck.
Luck. Most
Yeah.
of the time, they don't crack their heads falling down the stairs. They don't get a dread disease. They don't get kidnapped. They don't get hit by a car, but sometimes it happens. You only get to have your kids when you're with them, and the rest of the time, they're a good memory and a hope for the future. And Lewis, with your behavior, you don't even have that. So why would you take this risk out of love? Why would you take this risk to enjoy your son while you're lucky to have him? So yeah, it's taking the risk and touching things and purposely touching your son. Because you know what? In the real world, that's what your son's going to be doing. Because if he can get high from this, what are you going to do with a 16-year-old who's going around touching everything
Yeah.
and getting high?
Mm.
Or keep him home so he never goes out,
Yeah.
and
Doesn't
then he
develop an
won't get
immune
high.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at school, nobody is acting the way you're acting. So all the other little children and all the teachers are going to get your kid high. It's possible.
Right.
But the alternative is never letting your kid out and making sure he's messed up.
Right.
So it's a contamination issue and worrying about outside contaminants. Some people, you're worried about drugs. Some people are worried about disease, chemicals,
Right.
whatever. But the
Mhm.
answer's the same. So we would really encourage you to choose to learn to live with uncertainty. It's really painful. It sucks.
Yeah.
The alternative world doesn't exist.
Right. And
That's
this
my
is the
short answer.
path, right? This is the path. This is the way, as they say.
It is, but it
Right?
makes me uncomfortable when they say this is the path. I suddenly see us leading a religious movement, which I don't want
Oh,
to do. Follow
There's
the
no
path.
Kool-Aid here. Don't worry.
Yeah.
no, there isn't any Kool-Aid. Although it's funny, my one of my son's friends at school recently was just in regular PE, broke his arm right in the middle of a school day in PE, right in front of all of the supervising, teachers or PE coaches, whatever. But what's interesting is that they were playing a game called Braveheart, which I was like, oh, okay, well, they were playing Braveheart. So obviously that must have been very violent, etc. But actually, it was just when they were choosing teams that he ended up breaking his arm.
Didn't even get to it. That's
They
hilarious.
didn't even get to it, right?
Yeah.
And so it can happen anywhere. It can happen anywhere.
It's like a
And
fire
Lewis,
can start in your garage through the sun
oh,
and the mirrors. And
I know exactly right. Oh my gosh, today I was making eggs and the fire alarm went off and I was like, what? So I was so busy. I just put the fire alarm out in the garage. And so now I'm like, just crossing my fingers that a fire doesn't start in the house here. But
We'll let you know if we see smoke.
okay,
yeah,
good. Yeah, good. Thankfully we have more fire alarms than just the one. But yeah, so okay. And so, I'm curious, Zach, do you have anything else to add in the response to Lewis's question about this
well,
idea of sort of the
since
incidental
you threw me under the
exposure?
bus earlier about not responding to your text, I actually did
Yes.
respond to this when we were talking
Oh,
about it.
oh.
I said, have they ever thought about actually doing drugs? And the
You mean as
positive
an
effects.
exposure, Zach? Because that's not something I would
No,
routinely
no,
recommend.
no,
Oh,
just
okay.
doing it
Just
and seeing it, recreationally.
Well,
That is
first of
my
all,
sixth sense of
although we
humor.
wouldn't
Okay.
recommend it, depending on what state
No.
he's in, it's legal.
Yeah, I'm in one. It's 100% legal.
so wait a minute, Zach. Please explain more. What are you saying?
I was joking when I
Okay.
explained. First
You
off,
might
the
want to
most
say that
important
6
thing
more
is,
times to prevent you getting sued, because I just want to be clear. Zach said
yeah,
that, not me or Katie.
Zach, that's
right.
right.
This is
Everyone,
not professional advice.
Zach
This
is
is
telling people, yeah.
it's not professional advice, by the way.
However, along Zach's point, a
Yeah,
zillion people have used marijuana or alcohol.
and can freely do it. And of
And
many of the
and
states.
and if they, if they haven't done it abusively, they're fine.
Right.
It's their choice.
So what's the quantity necessary to really be devastating?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Well, to
you know,
Lewis's point, it's anything above zero.
well,
Right.
I have to get it in my bloodstream at the right quantity. So, um, getting it through the,
Okay.
um,
So there's a mathematical piece that has to
yeah,
have the threshold you have to
yeah,
meet, right?
being intimate with somebody who's really high and they're sweating a lot is not going to. We don't. It's still not getting into your bloodstream.
Right. We think,
Probably,
not
probably.
probably, right?
You know.
All right, just letting people know the chat is on. Give me a sec.
Okay.
There we go.
And the lawsuits will commence after this.
That's right.
But they're all going
Just
to you,
remember,
so it's okay. I'm cool.
Zach Pasha. Should I spell your name for them just in case?
Just put his email up.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
put
fine.
your email up.
Email at home address.
That's right. Yeah. So, and but I think part of what's important to remember here is that, joking aside,
Yes.
what ends up happening in these instances when these OCD type thoughts come into our minds, right? Like, what if I come into contact with some substance, some drug, and I inadvertently, transmit it to my children, or I inadvertently get high from it, or something along those lines. Um, you know, we have to remember that in those moments when we're having that thought, we might feel very alarmed. We might have a deep sense that something is wrong. That's OCD, right? That's happening. And so, I think that to just, we laugh about it because some of this stuff is sort of funny, but the truth is like, in the moment, it feels very real. But I want to remind everybody out there who's suffering with OCD, what is, John always talks about this. What does certainty feel like? I mean, certainty is not a fact. It's not a fact. It's a sensation that we have. And so right now, my son is at school, I think, and I think he's safe. But
Hope so.
we hope so.
Yeah.
And that's all right. We cross our
Yeah.
fingers and we hope that our loved ones are safe, even when they're out of our
We
view.
cross our fingers and hope in a non-ritualistic way.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But in the
And-
meantime, I mean, like, let's say that all of a sudden, because this happens from time to time, right? I read a news story about a school shooting and I start to get this sort of like a sensation of panic, right? Does
Mhm.
that mean that I have to bolt out of my house and race over to the school to go rescue my son? No, we have to learn to sit with those feelings. We have to
And
let
it
those
brings to
those
mind a
sensations
question
exist.
that I have.
I do have a thing to say, but go ahead, John.
No, I'll let you go
I'll remember it.
first.
Okay. So I guess I'm saying this out of a little bit of guilt that I went right to the joke. But I have a really good point, I think, to follow up because I have had this experience earlier in my career where I worked with someone. It was a mom, and DHS got involved because of they use drugs around their kids,
Mhm.
Purposely,
intentionally,
not by
not
going to the
accidentally. No,
supermarket and picking something off a shelf.
no, it was intentional, and they felt horrible about it. Awful.
Yeah.
And part of our work was about learning to forgive themselves and also learn some different ways of coping.
Right.
And believe it or not, they were able to still learn to live and cope with that horrible, awful thing that happened. That's actually even different than the scenario Lewis is saying. So don't tell me you wouldn't be able to handle it, Lewis, because I've already seen people do it.
Right. That's right. Oh, that's
Yeah.
such a good point, Zach. Go ahead,
And
John.
should
That's
I
why I
ask?
wanted to say it.
Should I ask you this question or Zach?
I don't know. Throw it out
Both
there,
of us.
John. Let's see who
Yeah.
bites first.
Okay. Suppose you're in a supermarket and you see an individual who is incredibly good looking. I mean, it is just staggering
Okay,
how
ask
good
me the question. Ask me the question.
it's staggering how
Yeah.
good looking they are.
Mhm.
like you're amazed. And
Yes.
they kind of give you even a flirtatious look.
Mm.
Do you go up to them and ask them to sleep with you?
Well, it depends. No, I'm just joking. I'm totally joking.
Wait, so
No,
this is
of
the part where
course
we tell you you're on
not.
live stream?
Of course not. I love
Okay.
my husband.
And I have a second question.
Yep.
The fact that you decide to not cheat on your husband, does that make this person any less attractive?
Of course not.
Well, wait. Are you saying that you can have an intense feeling and not listen to it?
I know. Yes, it's
I'm
possible.
fairly confident she has them every time we do live streams.
Yeah,
That's
but
true.
but they're negative and she keeps coming back.
That's what I'm
Um,
saying. She's learned to tolerate them.
right.
True.
So my the point is like I can feel uncertain,
Yeah.
but it is my choice whether to give into it or not. And in the same way that you feel like sleeping with some stranger might have a negative impact on your marriage, we're suggesting that giving into trying, to the feelings of uncertainty and trying to make them certain is highly likely to guarantee your OC will get worse. And generally, it means you're going to feel even more uncertain.
Yeah.
Because I can't say, I know anybody listening has had the experience of watching their OCD grow from a whatever small or big concern
Acorn.
to
Yeah,
a giant concern because, you know, for every inch you give, it takes a mile.
that's true. It's really true.
What
And
else
it's
is on our,
interesting.
do we have anyone
Well,
else?
hold on. Lewis is here.
Oh,
Lewis is here with
yay.
us.
Hey, Lewis.
Oh,
And
I didn't know
as
that.
is as
That's
is someone
awesome.
named, it's I don't know if it's Doogie or Dougie, but Dougie's here too. And he's wondering, John, have you seen him in the supermarket? Is that why you're remarking on it? That's what Dougie's wondering. Anyways.
I
Oh no,
like
no,
him.
wait. That's Lewis. Hold on, that's Lewis.
Oh, that's even
He's
better.
saying he,
The answer is yes. No offense. I choose my spouse over him.
Uh,
I'm sure she's feeling very relieved. All right. But what he said was, he said, thanks, guys. Zach, I'm not fancying that. So he's not real interested in the experimentation with drugs, but sort
fair.
of acknowledging that, because this is a high value issue for him, that he knows that's why his OCD attaches to it. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. So, yeah, he's laughing. So, okay. So let's talk about the other question that is going to bring us more into the theoretical issues here. And then I made a few promises to people
Uh,
that we'd address certain questions today too. And so while you guys are discussing this one, then oh no, actually, all right, we're going to talk about this one first, just because you
okay.
guys saw my response to it. Sorry. So, somebody who saw John's the reel that I posted about John's suggestion that you put a contaminant like toilet water into a spray bottle and spray it everywhere really objected to this idea based on the fact that they're like, this is insane. This is insane. And so I had my whole response, but I want to hear what John's response is to this one.
Well, as you guys can attest, and I only been working with OCD since 1978.
I
Uh,
wasn't born yet. Sorry.
and
I was 4.
and all the OC therapists we know who do proper treatment. Two things that sound crazy. And I understand that this sounds that way to her, ignoring the
Hmm.
fact that, we have pets that drink out of the toilet if you leave it open and they don't die or get
They
sick.
also lick their, what's, and we still
Yeah.
get kisses from them. But let's
It turns
we're
out
splitting hairs here.
that's good for the microbiome.
There you go.
Um, and it turns out that although it sounds disgusting, it turns out that nothing bad has ever happened for me doing that, or any of the people I've treated, or all the other people who use spray bottles and do that. So there are a lot of things we're afraid of that turn out to
Mhm.
not be as dangerous as we imagine. For some reason, I generally use just flushed toilets. But yeah, I agree. It's not a toilet that's been cleaned and sanitized. It's just been flushed. Um,
Right?
so, the question is, are we getting enough particles with enough of a viral load to get sick? To date, the data suggests it's a low probability event. And to date, we have to think, what kind of illnesses are we going to contract from the water if we're going to, if any?
Right.
Because you know what? I'd rather have a stomach virus for 3 weeks than OCD for 3 years.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I understand their objection. And one of the questions I always ask people is, about doing an exposure is, why would you take this risk, whatever the exposure is? Because if I'm suffering from OCD, it feels risky. It feels like a
Yeah.
big deal. And I never
Hmm.
do an exposure like minimizing, like, oh, this is like, you're safe, or this is silly. It feels like a real risk. And it may be low probability, but it could happen. So it's like, why am I going to risk doing this? Now, I do all the exposures with somebody that I'm telling them to do. So, my office has multiple times been sprayed with toilet water. And, it is probably the most my couch, which looks very nice, but it's probably the most contaminated thing in the world. Well, because anybody who's afraid of hurting others. And, I have a coffee maker, and I always have people contaminate my paper cups. That this isn't one I use. So who knows what I drank here. And, statistically, I depend on what we all depend on: luck.
Look.
I might die in a car crash today. I hope not.
Yeah.
Um, but if I don't want to ever die in a car crash, I can't go in a car. I'm thinking, shockingly, I'll bet the odds of a car crash are more likely than the odds of what I'm doing with exposures. Because
Mm.
having done this for a zillion years, and having all my friends who are therapists done this for a million years, I mean, if something bad happened at this point, it's like it should just by chance. But actually, I don't know any, I don't have any personal horror stories from clients, and nor do my friends. Whereas I do read about fatal car crashes on a daily basis. So
Right.
if you need to avoid these exposures, technically, you should never get in a car. I mean, people get in a car to go to a movie. Great. I'm risking death to see a movie or eat in a restaurant.
That's right.
Um, so I'm never
My wife's
saying things
picking
are
up the kids right now.
God,
good luck.
terrifying. Yeah.
I
Good
know.
luck. Fingers
You know,
crossed.
Yeah.
and right,
In a
you do
non-compulsive
the
way.
normal thing, which is, well, it doesn't feel like she's gone, and I'm gonna pretend she's gonna be okay unless I get a terrible phone call, which is all any of us can do. So yeah, I understand
Yeah.
it sounds gross, but like one of the things I've done at the OC convention is we do something where I'll get a bunch of people together if we're doing a exposure demonstration for contamination, and I will convince people to chew ABC gum,
Yes. The ABC
already been
gum
chewed. Now, people's
already been
immediate response
chewed.
to that is like, "Oh, I would never do that." And I always say, "Do you know why this is normal?" And people come up with a whole bunch of reasons that make no sense.
Hmm.
And I think that everyone, even the two of you, would agree that if I spit in a plate, you do not want to lick it.
No, it's disgusting. But
But the best, I love, she's giving me the bridge.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Setting it up.
in college, how many people did you French kiss without knowing their sexual history? Bottom line is 10-hour-old gum, and those people, it's no different, and the only thing is 10-hour-old gum is not really as appealing as French kissing somebody you're interested in.
true.
But yes, is it some risk? Yes, but that doesn't stop doesn't stop people from doing the only people it stops from intimacy at all are people with OCD.
That's right.
And the vast majority of people aren't dead, but some people get sick, and people take that risk. So, that's
All
a
right.
that's a very it's something that
I'd like to
sounds
talk about,
disgusting.
yes, I'd like to
Oh,
talk about my response, okay, to somebody's
okay.
query about the sort of insanity of the toilet water exposure. Um, you know, part of the rationale, and I've used this before with my clients, and nobody loves to think about this, but the Food and Drug Administration actually has a formula for how much rat poop they will allow in our food. There is actually, and so they go into big factories, they test the food that we eat, and they say, okay, this only has this tiny amount of rat poop, so it's okay. But at the end of the day, yes, we are all eating rat poop. On any given day, we're
And
eating
it's
small
even worse
amounts
than
of
you
rat poop.
say, because
Yeah,
every EPA recommendation is always not that it's contamination free, but we're going to call this level of contamination acceptable.
that's
Which,
right.
by
Right.
the way, the current administration, in an effort to please industry, is actually working for more liberal, meaning not liberal.
More rat poop.
More,
Well, I don't know about rat poop and picking, but they're looking to
less
make things,
restriction.
less restrictive, meaning more
Mhm.
contaminants in it. And so the question is, it sounds disgusting, but how much is in each droplet of water? Like, what is the level of contaminant in toilet water? And we're looking at parts per million.
Yep.
And and what amount is going to get in your body from this contamination? Because you're not drinking a quart jug of toilet water when we do this.
No.
So we're suggesting
Well,
Right.
probable level is within EPA limits.
that's right.
I
Exactly
like
right.
that.
And so
EPA
there's,
limits.
we sort of reflect that when we do exposure, as extreme as it might feel, there are lots of everyday examples where we are engaging in risky behavior, danger, exposure to contaminants, etc., and we don't think twice about it. And so all we're suggesting is that we're doing something
On purpose.
mindfully on purpose.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And is there a risk? Well, tell me you can get in a car with no risk.
Yeah. Or you can eat at a
Mhm.
restaurant with no risk. My gosh, how
I
many
think you have
Eat
people
in
get
better
your
I
house
think
food
you
with
have
no
I think you
risk.
have better odds at a restaurant than a car,
You think? Well, you mean in terms of death or illness?
statistically, for both.
Statistically. Maybe so. Maybe so. All right. I do have a couple
Since
other
most
things.
accidents happen in the home, you should never go home.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. All right. So now let's talk about the other question we have, which is really where did I paste it? Here we go. This is a theoretical question that I thought was very interesting. So OCD sufferers have never have enough evidence to believe something, right? A door is locked, and or they won't harm their loved ones. Uh, so they're talking specifically, this person is talking, this is Raphael, and he's talking specifically about the gun test that we've brought up here before. And for those of
Mhm.
you who don't know, or this is the first time joining us here, the gun test is as follows, is if there's a gun to your head and a gun to the head of
By
everybody
the
that
way,
you love.
I just make it to their kid or spouse. Some people are willing to die, so I make it to somebody they don't want to die. But yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and your children or your parents or, what have
Pets.
you.
Pets are a big
And
one too.
pets are a big one too. Yeah. So,
Like, I don't care
gun
about
to
my
the head
spouse,
of
but my dog.
everyone
Oh.
and every animal that you love. And if you get the
just one.
answer
Let's not be
wrong,
crazy. Just one.
go, let's not be crazy. I'm not the one that invented the gun test, John.
I
That's
know
why
he
Anyways,
I'm
did.
correcting. That's why I'm correcting you.
so if you get the answer wrong, your loved one dies. But if you get it right, they're fine.
And you don't get,
And
and
you
if you
have
don't,
to answer. You have to answer. See,
or
I
we
know
shoot
this
them.
stuff. What was that?
And they have to
Yeah,
If
you
they
have
don't
to
guess.
get,
answer or we shoot
They
them.
have to
Right.
guess.
And so then the question we ask ourselves is the thing that you're fearing, the obsessive fear that you have, is it is it going to come true or is it accurate, right?
What's your
And
guess? Not
and
accurate.
Yeah.
It's what's your
right,
guess?
what's your guess, right? And so we're asking people to make their best guess. And what ends up happening is that people give us their logical response to the
No,
gun test.
they give us the normative response, what
Normative
most people
response.
say.
My apologies. What most people say. You're absolutely right.
Hmm.
And I have to tell you, in all the years that I have been doing the gun test, I don't think I've ever had a client who's ever said the
What you didn't
non-normative
expect.
response.
However,
It does happen. I know it does. I've heard
however,
from
No,
other
however,
therapists. Go
I
ahead.
however,
did,
the
but they had
point,
dyslexia, so they said it bad. They took it back on. I'm not joking. So it's my fault.
that's like I went to a palm reader who got my everything wrong about me. But then I thought maybe it's because I'm left-handed and she read my right hand. Um,
Right?
I think I think that the point of the gun test is not proof.
No,
The person has
Mm-mm.
checked the door
no.
10 times and it's like, all right, we're going to check it again, but like you have to guess if it's locked or not, and that's going to determine, whatever you guess, that's going to be your best guess. All that is saying is that's as close as you're going to get to an answer that can guide your behavior.
Right,
There is no certainty. There are some
right.
things that are very high odds, there's some things that are kind of more questionable. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's 60-40 or 99-1. It's almost always odds. Some people say, well, I know I'm going to die someday. And my answer is, till you're dead, we don't know that's for sure. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
highly likely, but hey, till I'm dead, it might not happen to me.
Yeah.
But it's not where I'd want to bet my money.
Mm.
Um, so, yeah, the gun test is just like that's as
It's
close
our
as you're
best
getting
guess.
to uncertainty. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
um, and
But let
so,
me finish the question. So this
oh,
is
okay,
what we
there's
were
more.
talking about. Yes, we're talking about this is a person who had a question about the gun test. And what we're talking about, right, is we're using ways to encourage people just to take their best guess and then proceed with making whatever decision they're going to make. And so Raphael makes this point. With a gun to their head, they suddenly have enough evidence, even if prior to that they were sort of vacillating, right, back and forth between what they should do, or considering how to make themselves safe, or seeking reassurance, or doctor Googling, or what have you, right?
That's not true though.
Well, wait,
What,
wait,
hold
let
on.
her finish. But I go,
Yep.
Sorry.
I'm
Okay.
with you, Zach.
What
Yeah.
probably makes the difference is that they have no choice in the last situation. There is an immediate cost if they don't come to a conclusion, even if it's to conclude, it's better to put the issue on hold for a while within a short amount of time. In real life, which by the way is not an option for the gun test,
Keep
just to let
going.
you know. So in real
Yeah.
life, you can't always imagine a gun to your head, and the effect of the imaginary gun eventually wears off. So what can replace it? Not
I don't know
waiting
what
too
they're
long to
talking
make,
about.
they're saying not waiting too long to make
I'm sorry,
decisions.
delaying a decision in favor of OCD information gathering never
Mhm.
makes sense.
Right.
And so there is the like, oh, but I actually need more data. But that's usually not so. And I think the time it takes to imagine a gun test is really short. Like the decision I have to make where I can't do the gun test. Yeah, I don't have to worry about OCD. It's like my car is careening out of control. Do I hit the brakes or not? I'm not really thinking. I'm
Gun
either hitting
test.
them or failing, but whatever, I'm turning the steering wheel. It may be the
Like,
wrong
let's
thing, but
see.
but so the bottom line is,
Hmm.
after the
And as
fact,
Lewis says, what if the gun is to the head of somebody you don't like very much? Then it's a,
I never pick that person,
I
Yeah.
know, we're
obviously.
just, Lewis is joking.
That's
Okay.
fine. The bottom line is, yes, yes, you might be wrong. Yes, you know, success is not making the right decision. It's coping with the consequences of whatever decision you made. And coping
Yeah.
means even if it's terrible and you have to deal with forgiving yourself or trauma, even that, because I don't know anything. I just depend on luck. All of us do. Not random luck. I generally don't worry about airplanes falling out of the sky. When my son was 10, There was a schoolyard where a helicopter crashed into a small plane, rained over the schoolyard during recess, and children did die. This is not a high probability event,
He never told
but
me the kids died part. Wow. Okay.
it was during recess,
Holy shnikes.
and a couple of
Okay.
kids died. Yeah, and as well as a senator from Pennsylvania, Heinz, like of the Heinz like ketchup family. Um, you know, that's terrible, but like none of us start looking in the sky now for airplanes. It's low
Right,
probability, but it can happen. And so I can only, take a risk.
right.
I get, again, anytime you get in a car, yeah, you're going to make some bad choices in life, and some of them might be really bad. And the goal is, how am I going to cope with that? Forgiving yourself doesn't mean like, oh, I don't care. Forgiving yourself, in some cases means well, I understand how I did that and did that wrong, and I hope I'll be better in the future. The memory is always going to suck, but that's okay. Or, it might have been uncontrollable altogether, and I'm just stuck living like with a trauma image that I really hate, but I have to cope with it because the alternative is never coping.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to also just make a point to Raphael about this idea of like doing a gun test kind of in the moment. Part of what we're doing is we have to examine the rest of our day or the portions of our day when OCD is not kind of causing us to feel uncertain about things, and examine how it is that we make decisions. As Jon said, you're in the car, you're careening towards something, you're not sitting there and going, gun test, right? You're not having to do that. Instead, what we do is we make a million little decisions every single day. Right now, I'm sitting here live streaming. I could have taken this as my coffee break, but instead, here I am. Was that a bad
I
decision?
have my coffee with it. I combine them.
Some would argue it was a terrible decision, but however, here we are. Okay. So we make a million little decisions every single day and we make them very quickly. But when it comes to OCD, it's like, we're hung up, right? OCD, we're suddenly struck with this anxiety, struck with this sensation of
What about the
wrongness.
999,000 other decisions you're not considering?
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
when we talk about using a tool like the gun test, it's not because for the rest of your life you're going to be sitting down and going, I'm going to gun test this, right? The idea is that we're practicing making quicker choices and not getting hung up
And living
on
with it.
those OCD ruminations and not seeking out reassurance or moving into avoidance. And instead, we're trying to have people sort of move purposefully in a direction and
And
practice that enough that it becomes secondhand with all
and going
things.
full circle back to Lewis's original question, the question for doing exposure is always, why would I take this risk? What am I guessing the odds of exposure being disastrous
Right.
versus what I've seen with my OCD and life being a complete nightmare? And the worst thing is my rituals don't work. That is, they don't prevent disaster. Like I said, when we're talking about Lewis, it's like, well, if you're not going to keep your kid in a cage, the rest of the
Yeah.
world is going to poison him with drugs by touching. So you're doing all this for nothing,
Yeah.
which is pretty sad.
Right. And right, screwing up your kid too, like that's a possibility when parents are have OCD and they're doing a lot of reassurance seeking, they're doing a lot of contamination rituals, etc. Children are excellent observers, they see that stuff, and so we really have to be cautious. But so I
Especially
did
at
want to
that
get
age.
to,
Like
oh
that's
right,
prime learning.
I know it really is, they're watching us, we are their
I say that
models.
because I have very young kids too, Louis.
I
So
know. I was just saying, can you imagine a Zach as a dad?
Yeah. Zach, how many do you have now? Is it six or no? How many?
3.
It's a lot.
Mm.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about that came up several times in some of the discussions I was having with people. Um, a lot of times, I think what really hangs people up about doing treatment is that they'll have a very powerful physical sensation that accompanies an obsessive thought, right? And so, if all of a sudden my hand starts to feel twitchy and I'm in the presence of a knife, couldn't that twitchiness indicate that I might snap and grab the knife? And the groinal response, right? Oh
Mm,
my goodness. And we see this with a lot of things, right? I have a groinal response, and couldn't that mean that I'm gonna cheat on my partner, or couldn't that mean I'm attracted to this child, etc.? And so I think sometimes even people that are really working hard to try to do exposures, or at least walk the walk of exposures, get very held up. They sort of get arrested by those experiences. And so I'm wondering what your
yeah,
thoughts are
because
about that.
it's kind of it messes with their head. If my
Yeah,
body's responding in a way that saved my life at some point earlier,
hmm,
and now I'm supposed to ignore that,
right.
what are you talking about? So of course they're gonna do that.
Yeah. And this is,
Unfortunately, that's paradoxical to treatment.
right. It is paradoxical to treatment. And so, but it's like, I always get this question from patients. How do we know the difference
Oh,
between a
that's easy.
real one? Oh, what is it, John? Go. I love it when John says things are easy.
He didn't have to raise both hands this time, thankfully.
That's right. Yeah.
I
Luck.
kind of go, I can have, I mean, first of all, groinal responses. If I focus on my genitals, I'm going to have a response if I focus enough on them. So that tells us nothing.
Mhm.
Um, I can have all kinds of thoughts and feelings,
We'll have to be
and
careful there, John. We don't want to be too reassuring by saying nothing,
you didn't
right?
let me finish.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I can have all kinds of thoughts or feelings, and me drawing conclusions from them as to what they might be. They might be anything. What
Hmm.
am I stuck with? Oh shit, I'm stuck with the odds.
Hmm.
you know. So if somebody's like, yeah, got a twitchy hand, you know, I've got a twitchy hand about my knife, which,
Hmm.
is always, with me. Does this mean like, how do I know I'm not going to hurt somebody? I have odds. Now, what would make me concerned about somebody with, any particular negative thought that they are terrified of? I would have to hear that they have, and this wouldn't be a definite that I really have to be concerned, but this would raise me as a therapist concern. I'd have to hear that they have a set of thoughts that I'm about to describe with no doubt. And what I mean that is because as soon as I say this, somebody with OCD is going to say, well, do I think that? But if you're
Right.
asking, do I think that,
Oh my
that's
gosh.
doubt. This is
Eh,
like no doubt. So this should be like,
yeah.
I have to know that, it would be so incredibly amazing
Yeah.
for me to like go home, and when my wife's not ready and she's sleeping, just like slice this down her throat and all the way down her body and start peeling her skin away. Like that would be incredible. If you have that thought and you like, no, that would be great. And the only reason you're not doing it is like, well, I don't want to get arrested and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to say to me, well, I don't know if I think that, I can think that thought, I can imagine myself doing it, I said, yep, sorry, you have to tell me you'd like it. Or it's like, you know what? Bury my head in the crotch of a 5-year-old like that. That doesn't get a groinal response. Like I get full on definite excitement. Like honestly, not only do I get arousal, I know that would be great.
Hmm.
I don't do it because like I
Sign
don't
me
want to
up.
get in trouble, but I know it'd be great. So tell me that, and we'll take it from there. But if you say to me, well, I don't want to get to that point, it's like, okay, but you're not there yet. So we're gonna act like it's OCD. And if it's not, we'll deal with it then. But so all three of us spend a lot of time acting like stuff is OCD. Currently, it appears we're good guessers.
Right.
Yeah.
It does.
It
It
appears.
does. But okay, so I have another question
But
that's
as
sort
you
of,
said before, they could be the
mm,
first.
that's right. It could be the
Somebody
first.
somebody will be the first.
Yes.
So, okay,
I hope
so
if they're a killer, I'm not, it's not with me.
Good
this
point.
question was recently posed to me by a therapist, actually.
Mm,
So,
cool.
and so I wanted us to talk about this because I think that maybe different cases are a little bit different. But
By the way, we're
but
short on
I
time now, so you better hurry up and ask
oh
it.
shoot. No, you're right. You're right. Okay. So in a nutshell, it's so what do we do if somebody is with us in a session and they're talking about some rare sequence of events that could be harmful, right? And they're telling us that they do really believe that it could be harmful. And when we start to do this, well, we're just going to have to act like it's OCD kind of stuff, right? And we say, okay, so, like just as an example. So let's say
Thank you.
this
I can
hand
answer this.
twitching. So let's say, hold on, let's say that the hand twitching, we have to kind of approach this. Maybe the hand twitching, maybe it does mean that you're suddenly going to have this urge to grab a knife. And so we talk about, right, mental exposure to those kinds of scary things, etc. But but when the person is sitting there with us, what if they object and say, "Oh my God, I was saying my hand was shaking, not twitching. And now that you've said twitching, now I'm thinking that if it twitches, then you've said that that means that I'm going to kill somebody."
Well, first of all, that's easy because it's like, no, you've just twisted my words. It might be a little bit
True.
worse if the client says, no, I believe this exposure will lead to this. If I
Mhm,
touch this, I will get sick. If I'm having feelings about this and I hold a knife, I think I will lose control. So there's no probability here. I think it's highly likely.
mhm.
And my first question would be, I mean, we have a difference of opinion about the odds, but if you're sure of this, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, I can do treatment, but I'm not sure what you're expecting of me because you're telling me this is true and you're sure of it. So you don't care if I say you don't care if my opinion is that it's not true.
Mhm.
So, if you're going to tell me it's true, but you want to learn to live with risk, we can do that. But I want to know what you're coming here for because it seems, there seems to be a disconnect for like, I know these people are going to die if I touch the dumpster and go home, my family's going to die. Um,
Why would
why?
you be here? Why
Well,
wouldn't
well,
you be
Yeah.
what?
off,
Yes, like
sterilizing your body? Yeah.
Yeah.
so. How do you want? What are you looking for now? If
Right.
you would like us to spend time about, you know, reasons to take risks and why that
Hmm.
might be beneficial, that's a fine step. So I'm not going to start exposure right now with your attitude because I
Hmm.
need to hear you're willing to take risk.
Right.
If you're not willing, so if you're not willing to take risk now, but you would like to learn about why it might be worth taking risk, that can be the focus of our therapy. If you're like, that's never happening, my personal opinion is really negative towards you ever getting better. So I don't know what you would like me to do for you.
So let me give you the little tiny follow-up, and I know we're short on time, but I have to ask this. What
Hmm.
about the clients that are coming to us and saying, but my other therapist said a thought is just a thought and it's just OCD?
Yeah, that's cool. And you know what? That, if you believe that, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You're
I was
considering, you're thinking like that's probably true, but what if I'm the exception?
Hmm.
And
right.
what I do with living with talking about uncertainty, this is not the treatment I do for OCD. This is like to me, this is all of life is uncertain. I never know what's going to happen for sure. I have odds, and I think coping with life in a positive way is learning to accept that I don't have control and I may have to cope with a lot of things. Some reasonably likely, like I might get cancer, some really unlikely, but they could happen. So,
Right.
um, you know, the people who say a thought is just a thought, that comes from ACT, where they, you know,
Hmm.
and that's ACT is great, but in
Great.
ACT, but the thing about ACT is that statement. is not for OCD because ACT is not
No.
into reassuring people. ACT
Right.
is talking to live with pain. And it just happens that that statement for non-OC sufferers makes a lot of sense because
Does.
they're
Right.
not thinking about the way you. For you, that's a reassurance. And ACT, a good ACT therapist actually wouldn't do that if they understand OCD. And, so that's why you're stuck with an OCD specialist.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just wanted to clear the air on that. All right. Any final thoughts before we finish up?
No, I have to run out.
All right. Well, I thank our viewers for
Sorry
being here
for,
with
for
us
All
ending
right.
again this
suddenly.
week. Yeah,
That's all
John
right.
has to go. He's very rude. Okay. See you guys next month, okay?